Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I plan to introduce the Dixit-Stiglitz preference and CES utility function. We will mainly focus on the Dixit and Stiglitz 1977 paper. In this paper, DS explore whether the market solution is optimal. It actually contains three distinct models: the CES case, the Cobb-Douglas case, and an asymmetric case. Let's take a look one by one. So the basic principle is that the optimal amount is when the demand price equals to the marginal cost, which can be achieved only when the market is perfectly competitive, when perfectly discrimination is possible. However, a competitive market is unsustainable because the total profit would be negative. While a monopolistic market could allow positive profit but violates this marginal condition. So in this paper, Dixit and Stiglitz want to explore whether markets provide a socially optimal mix of products. They focus on the trade-off between scale economies and product variety. Specifically, they will answer the question that how will market force affect the balance between product diversity and quantity, and how does this compare to the socially optimal outcome. Before their paper, several early literature also tried to introduce variety into the preference analysis. For example, Hotlin's spatial model takes a product differentiation based on physical or characteristic distance. Lancaster's characteristic approach, which argues that consumers will choose based on product attributes. So, for example, when you want to buy a car, the attributes for a car, including the fuel consumption, horsepower, weight, space, and many other attributes, and your choice based on a combination of these product attributes. And mean variance model mainly applied to finance. It balances variety and risk. These methods rely on specific assumptions and are difficult to generalize. While DS 1977 provides a direct approach using a conventional utility function to model level variety. Okay, let's take a look at the setup of their models. Firstly, they assume a separable utility function. There are two sectors in the economy, where X0 is a consumption of numeral goods and Y represents utility from consuming other differentiated products. So they make use of the intra-sector and inter-sector elasticities to solve the problem of optimal diversity and optimal quantity. They assume all products in the group are symmetric. It means that all goods have equal fixed and marginal cost, and so the product differentiation only comes from quantity instead of cost. And all commodities have unit income elasticities, which means that the proportion of consumer spending on each good in income remains constant. It simplifies consumer demand analysis because it avoids the complexities of different demand responses for different commodities as income changes. And implicitly, they assume that all goods are normal goods, of course. As income increases, the demand must increase. Then consumers are facing budget constraint that the spending on the numeral good X0 plus the spending on differentiated products, the sum which is the sum of the spending on different goods equals to their income. Okay, so the first case is CES case when the function y has a CES form and u is allowed to be arbitrary. This case allows for analyzing intersector relationships because the intersector relationship, that's the relationship between X0 and the numeral good and the differentiated products are more flexible. The second case is when function u follows a Cobb-Douglas form, so the intersector relationship is fixed, while y takes a more general additive form. This case focuses on the intrasector substitution. Okay, in the CES case, consumer preferences are represented by a constant elasticity of substitution utility function. It's a standard form which captures the trade-off between variety and substitution among differentiated products. Here we could say that the rho is smaller than 1. This is to ensure that the utility function is consistent with the assumption of rational consumer behavior. As more of a good is consumed, the utility of adding additional consumption decreases, or else the utility increase when with the increase of consumption if rho is greater than 1. And rho is greater than 0 is because when rho is smaller than 1, then if x equals to 0, we would have 1 over 0, which doesn't make any sense. And sigma is elasticity of substitution between goods. Then from solving the utility maximization problem, combining the budget constraint we have seen in the former slides, we can get the quantity and price index. Here we could say that actually y is equivalent to v. And xi is consumption of good I, pi is the price of good I, and qi is the aggregate price index for all goods. They define SQ as the share of income spent on non-numerical goods. So we can write the Y, which is consumption on differentiated products, as a ratio of spending on differentiated products over the aggregate price level of the differentiated products. And X0, because for the numerical good, the price for numerical good is standardized to 1. So the consumption on numerical good equals to the spending on numerical goods. The DS model solves the equilibrium in 2 stages. In the first stage, they take sum of x as one good is y here, the differentiated product. Under the budget constraint, x0 plus qy equals to income. Combining the first order conditions, the elasticity of substitution can be written in this way. Theta q is elasticity of function sq, and sigma q is elasticity of substitution between x0 and y. Then we could find the following relationships for theta q from this equation. Is that theta q equals to the multiplication of 1 minus sigma q and 1 minus sq, because we know that the substitution elasticity between products from 2 sectors should be relatively low, which means that the sigma q typically less than 1. So the multiplication of these two terms is smaller than 1 minus sq, because this term is smaller than 1. And so theta q is smaller than 1. This condition stabilizes market equilibrium by limiting the impact of price index fluctuation on utility weights. Because without this condition, when the price index fluctuates excessively, consumers may shift disproportionately towards a specific type of goods, either X0 or Y, leading to market imbalances. Then in the second stage, consumers maximize utility by allocating their income between differentiated products, given a CES utility function and a budget constraint. Here again, we know that under the CES case, the differentiated products are aggregated using a CES aggregator. This will result in CES demand function, which is also still standard, where each product's demand depends on its own price, the substitution elasticity, and the CES price index, the aggregate price index level. And the price elasticity is a factor of every single firm on the aggregate price index. Is particularly useful in analyzing markets with differentiated products. We could say it later. So when the price elasticity approaches to 0, as the number of firms becomes infinite, each firm's market share becomes negligible. Then the Chamberlain lower DD curve represents the demand faced by a single firm in monopolistic competition. This curve reflects the idea that every firm's pricing decision don't significantly affect the aggregate price index or overall market demand. Then they assume zero cross elasticity to ensure that a firm's demand depends only on its own price, and symmetry ensures that all firms are identical, making it possible to derive a smooth aggregate demand curve. Then they get the Chamberlain capital DD curve as a function of income, the expenditure share on differentiated product price level, and firm numbers. Because under the symmetric situation, we can imagine each firm only produce one differentiated product, so the number of firms equals to the number of products are n. And we could calculate the price elasticity of demand from the demand curve, the capital DD curve, and we could say that the DD curve is also downward sloping. Usually, the lower DD curve is more elastic because the lower DD curve represents the demand faced by an individual firm and is more elastic because consumers can easily substitute between products from different firms. However, the capital DD curve reflects the aggregate market demand, which is less elastic due to the overall stability of total consumer expenditure. Then in the next step, they analyze market equilibrium and compare it to both constrained and unconstrained social welfare optimum. In the market equilibrium, firstly, firms set marginal cost MC equals to the marginal revenue MR to maximize profits, and we could get the equilibrium price level from this maximization profit condition. And firms will entrade the market until the zero profit condition is met. It means that when the firm's revenue just covers the fixed cost and the variable cost, this will determine the equilibrium number of firms. If we take the partial differentiation of demand over the number of firms m, we could get this function, and let's say we know when DD curve is more elastic, this condition holds. So it means that this term is greater than 0, and the effect of firm number n on demand is smaller than 0. It means that the more firms produced in the market, the less each firm produced. To sum up, the market equilibrium occurs when firms maximize profit by setting MC equals to MR, and they will entrade until the zero profit condition is met. However, the consumer will maximize their utility under budget constraint, as we have seen before. So this decentralized decision-making focus on individual optimization instead of overall social welfare. As a result, market equilibrium often leads to inefficiencies. So they compare the market equilibrium to constrained and unconstrained social welfare optimum. The social welfare optimization improves on market equilibrium by maximizing total social welfare, considering both consumer utility and the overall efficiency of resource allocation. So first, let's have a look at the constrained optimum. It aims to maximize total social welfare and at the same time consider the real-world constraints such as fixed cost and market structure. We know that U is a monotonically decreasing function of Q, so solving the minimization problem of Q is equivalent to solve the maximization problem of utility. The constraint is budget balance. So from the first order condition, we could get the equilibrium price and the equilibrium number of firms. It's similar to the market equilibrium. Here we could say that the equilibrium price under the constraint optimum is equal to the equilibrium price in the market equilibrium. So the number of firm also equals to the number of firm in the market equilibrium. Well, for unconstrained optimum, it aims to maximize social welfare in theory without worrying about practical limits such as fixed costs or how firms enter or exit the market. So here we could say that unlike the constraint case, it doesn't consider how fixed costs affect firms. So the maximization problem only replace X0 using the economic resource constraint. It means that the spending on X0 plus the spending on differentiated product equals to 1 is a standardized income. And replace the y with a function of x and n, which is derived from the consumer utility maximization problem. And from the first order condition of the maximization problem, they get the equilibrium price. Again, here the equilibrium price under unconstrained optimum equals to C. It's smaller than the equilibrium price under the constrained optimum and the market equilibrium, because here low is between 0 and 1. So it means that each firm exactly covers its variable cost and receive a one-time subsidy from of A from social planner. The disposable income of consumer is 1 minus N multiplied by A. The equilibrium demand under the unconstrained optimum equals to the equilibrium demand in the constrained optimum and in the market equilibrium. It means that each firm's production is the same in all three equilibrium. Briefly summary what we have discussed before. So for these three different scenarios, the market equilibrium, constrained optimum, and unconstrained optimum, the utility maximization problem for consumers are the same. The consumers will maximize their utility under the budget constraint, and we could get the lower DD curve for each firm. That's the demand curve for each firm, and the capital DD curve for its demand equation for the whole industry or the whole economy. Under the market equilibrium, on the one hand, consumers will maximize their utility, and on the other hand, firms will maximize their profit, and firms will in-trade the market until the profit is 0. Under constrained optimum, they combine the utility maximization, which is equivalent to the aggregate price level minimization problem, with firms in-trade and exist equilibrium condition. And we could find that the equilibrium price under the first two scenarios are the same. And under the unconstrained optimum, there is no practical limits for fixed cost and for in-trade and exit decisions. The only constraint is the economic resource constraint, and we could find that the price level under the unconstrained optimum is the lowest in these three scenarios. It means that the equilibrium price is higher in both market and constraint cases due to markups. And it's lower. It's lowest in the unconstrained case, reflecting no fixed cost burden. Demand is consistent across all cases, reflects a balance of production and cost assumptions. Okay, then let's comparing the price index and expenditure share and the number of firms under different scenarios. For the price index is lowest in the unconstrained case because the price level is the lowest under the unconstrained cases. So the aggregate price level is also lowest under the unconstrained cases. And the expenditure share on X0 and Y, when sigma is greater than 1, lower price index increases the expenditure share on X0. So the because we define the SQ as expenditure share on non-numerical goods, so on Y. So we could know that the expenditure share on Y is the greatest under the unconstrained cases. And the number of firms, because the expenditure share on Y is highest under the unconstrained cases, and we know that the price under the unconstrained cases is lowest. So we will know that the consumption, the quantity under the unconstrained cases is greater than Y under the the consumption under the constraint and market equilibrium. And we assume that in the differentiated product sector, each firm produces one product, so the number of firms is largest under the unconstrained case. Now let's shift to the second case, the Cobb-Douglas case. The utility function combines the numerical goods x0 and a term for differentiated products Vx with a budget constraint. Here we could say that the intersector elasticity represented by gamma is elasticity between the numerical good and the differentiated products. Well, the intrasector relationship across different differentiated products is in a more general form. The v-axis is a concave function. Similarly, solving this maximization problem, we could get the elasticity of the lower DD curve. And if we assume symmetry, we could write the capital DD curve and the demand for the numerator in this way. Here we use the omega x to represent the expenditure share on differentiated products. This is the main difference from what we have seen in the CES case. Why? In the CES case, consumer demand for differentiated products is symmetric and has unit income elasticity. It means that the expenditure share for each product remains constant. Since the differentiated products has constant elasticity of substitution, I multiplied by SQ can represent the expenditure share when abstracting all differentiated products into one sector. However, in the Cobb-Douglas case, the substitution between differentiated products is more flexible. It's in a general form with the function v here. While still having constant elasticity of substitution, Vx no longer automatically satisfies unit income elasticity. It means that the expenditure share on different products can be changed when income changes. That's why we need omega x to adjust the expenditure weights for individual firms' demand shares. So let's have a look at the single product maximization problem. The utility function combines x0 and differentiated products nvx with a budget constraint. Here we use nvx instead of the sum of vxi because we assume there is only one product produced by different firms. Combining the two first-order conditions and the budget constraint, we could write the expenditure share on differentiated product omega in this way, and we define rho here as the elasticity of utility over the demand of differentiated products. Then the equilibrium price and the zero profit condition together determine the equilibrium demand. We can only write the equilibrium demand in the Cobb-Douglas form in the Cobb-Douglas case in this implicit form. Here we could say beta is now a function of the demand, which allows the elasticity to adapt to different level of demand, and it will reflects the real-world behavior when the substitution patterns vary with consumption. Finally, using the equilibrium price and assuming I equals to 1, the number of firms is calculated as N equals to omega E over A plus CX. In short, the market equilibrium balances price, output, and the number of firms, ensuring profits covered the fixed cost. Then, unlike the CES case, the CD frameworks maximize the utility directly under the constraint optimum. It's because in the Cobb-Douglas framework, the intra-equilibrium condition, if you remember, is B max say x equals to A, isn't explicitly used as a constraint. Because the Cobb-Douglas utility function introduced rho x. So now the elasticity of substitution is a function of demand x, as we mentioned before, which reflects dynamic substitution elasticity, and it will affect, we could say here, the rho x will directly affect the expenditure share omega x, which in turn determines the relationship between x and n, the demand and the number of firms. So as a result, using the intra-equilibrium condition as a constraint is insufficient to capture all the dynamics. So here we combine the budget constraint with the number of firms to solve the utility maximization problem. From the first order condition, again, they could write the demand in this implicit form, and we could say here in the market equilibrium, the demand is only equal to the first term. Here we have a second term. So if the rho prime x is greater than 0, it means that the second term is greater than 0. When the rho prime x is smaller than 0, it means that the it's smaller than 0. It means that the second term is greater than 0. And the relationship between the xc and xe, so the demand under the constraint optimum or in the market equilibrium, is opposite. And we can rewrite the this equation in a function of rho xc. This is to compare with demand level under the unconstrained optimum, which we will see in the next slide. Similarly, the number of firm is in the same form of as it is in the market equilibrium. Okay, so for the unconstrained optimum, again, similarly, they just replaced x0 with the resource balance condition and replaced the differentiated product y with a function derived from the utility maximization problem. Similarly, the demand of the number of firms, the demand and the number of firms are in this form. And here, if you remember, demand level under the constraint optimum is rho x plus this term. The first term in the multiplication is greater than 0. So if rho x is greater than 0, then the second term in total is greater than 0. If the rho x is smaller than 0, then the second term in total is greater than 0. So we can compare the demand level under the market equilibrium, under the constraint and unconstrained optimum easily. Here we could say that when rho x is smaller than 0, it's more realistic because the rho x is utility elasticity over demand. It means that the higher the demand for one product, the lower the marginal utility it will provide. So we could say that when rho x is smaller than 0, the demand share for each firm xu under the unconstrained optimum is greatest, and the number of firms under the unconstrained optimum is lowest. Okay, so far, the first two sections focused on cases where the substitution elasticity within groups was completely symmetric. In this section, this assumption is relaxed by dividing the differentiated sector products into two major categories. Within each category, products are aggregated using CES aggregator as previous. With constant elasticity of substitution, well, across these two categories, they are combined linearly, meaning that they are perfect substitutes. In the asymmetric case, the analysis focuses only on the social optimization problem rather than solving for market equilibrium. This is because the asymmetry between the two product groups introduce different elasticity of substitutions. It means that rho 1 does not equal to row 2 and different cost structures. So deriving market equilibrium would be impossible for this asymmetric condition, because deriving market equilibrium would require solving for firm level pricing and demand interactions under those conditions. Instead, in this section, DS aims to explore how relaxing the symmetry assumption affects the social optimal allocation and the interplay between categories. So the optimization problem is a constrained social optimum, incorporating a budget constraint to ensure total expenditure matches income and zero profit conditions for firms in both groups. This constraint reflects real-world conditions like firm entry and cost recovery while maximizing the overall utility. So we know that the relationship between the differentiated product is nonlinear now. So solving it means that the within group relationship is nonlinear now. So solving the optimization problem directly doesn't give an analytical solution unless row 1 equals to row 2. But if row 1 equals to row 2, then the asymmetry disappears and it makes no sense for the analysis in this part. So to simplify this nonlinear problem, DS assumes that in certain cases, the assumption of one major category is zero. This assumption reduces the optimization problem to a form similar to the earlier cases. It means that they assume x2 equals to 0 to obtain analytical solution, and you could find that the equilibrium conditions and the equilibrium price level equilibrium number of firms is just the same function as it is in the constrained case. Okay, so when only one firm produces, the decision about which firm or product category will supply depends on relative prices. Since the two categories are perfect substitutes, if one category's price is higher, then its demand will drop to 0, and only the lower priced category will be consumed and produced. So we would know that the Nash equilibrium condition when x2 equals to 0 and n equals to 1, because now we take x1, x2 as two single products. So when only x1 is produced, n equals to 1. Under this condition, the Nash equilibrium condition is that x2 equals to 0 if the price of x2 is greater than the aggregate price level of x1. It means that it's not the price level of x2 greater than the price level of a single firm that produce the x1. It's greater than the aggregate price level of all firms that producing x1. And if the price level of x2 is smaller than the aggregate level of x1, aggregate price level of x1, then the demand for x2 is, it should be IS over NP. Is the same thing as what we have seen before, but here the income is standardized to 1 and N also equals to 1, so x2 equals to IS over P2. And we should know that even when the x2 is a lower priced category, if firms can't cover their fixed cost, then no firms will produce the x2 in the long run. The firms will entry until the profit is 0, until that the price can cover exactly the fixed and variable cost. So here we could know that we should use the entry and exist equilibrium condition. And here we got the second Nash equilibrium condition is that the aggregate price level of x1 should be smaller than IC2 over S minus A2. Similarly, when x1 equals to 0 and n equals to 1. Now, finally, let's take 3 examples to say how the change of some parameters will affect the Nash equilibrium and the social optimal. let's first write down the Nash equilibrium condition. Let's take the case when x2 equals to 0. Then the Nash equilibrium condition is that P2 should be greater than the aggregate price level of producing x1, and Q1 should be smaller than SC2 over S minus A2. We let x-axis as Q1 and y-axis as Q2, and we make use of the 45-degree line to represent when Q1 equals to Q2. So in this region, Q2 is greater than Q1, and in this region, Q1 is greater than Q2. Then let's take the level of C1 minus over S minus A1, and here is level of SC2 over S minus A2. Okay, at the beginning, if we start from an equilibrium point on the 45-degree line, at a relatively lower price level, then we could say that in the region A, it satisfies that the Q1 is smaller than SC2 over S minus A2, and Q2 is smaller than SC1 over S minus A1. So both X1 and X2 satisfies the equilibrium condition in the region A. However, in this region, Q2 is greater than Q1. So it means that only producing X1 is optimal for the sincerity. Well, for the region B, again, it satisfies the equilibrium condition for producing both X1 and X2. However, in this region, Q1 is greater than Q2. So only producing the product, the second product is optimal for the sincerity. If we start from the equilibrium point on the 45-degree line, and now let's assume the demand elasticity of X2 increased. So let's say the elasticity, we define it as the change of demand with respect to the change of price. And we know that it's a function of beta. From this relationship, we will know that demand elasticity is a decreasing function with respect to beta, because if we take the partial differentiation of epsilon I over the beta I, is smaller than 0. So if the elasticity of X2 increased, it means that the beta 2 will decrease, and the aggregate price level of Q2 will increase. So Q2 is increasing. So the equilibrium point moves to the region A, and the sincerity will produce the X1 instead of X2 is the optimal choice for the sincerity. And we could say that if the change in the elasticity of X2 increased too much, then the equilibrium point will move to a new region. We call it region C. In the region C, only X1 satisfies the equilibrium condition. Why? Because in the region C, the Q1 is smaller than SC2 over S minus A2. However, Q2 is greater than the threshold level. So only producing 1 is a Nash equilibrium. And here Q2 is greater than Q1. So producing 1 is also an optimal choice for the sincerity. So we could say that the change in the demand elasticity will cause the equilibrium point move from the 45-degree line to region A and then to region C. Let's say a second example. When the fixed cost or the variable cost increased, it means that, let's take another color. It means that if let's say if the fixed cost of producing A1 or the variable cost of producing A1 increased, it will lead to an increase in the threshold level. Let's take 45-degree line. Q1, Q2. Here is SC1, S minus A1. Here is C2, S minus A2. Okay, this change will lead to an increase of this threshold level. Now we could say that the area of the region A increased and the area of the region Z increased. On the other hand, we know that Q1 equals to C1 multiplied by 1 plus beta 1 and with the power of 1 plus beta 1 multiplied by this term. So if A1 or C1 increased, it will lead to an increase in the Q1. So again, let's start from the 45-degree line. Now, if A1 or C1 increased, the equilibrium point will shift to the right because Q1 is increasing. And here is the region B, and here we call it region D. So the region D, we could say that Q1 is greater than SC2 over S minus A2. So producing only X1 does not satisfy the Nash equilibrium condition. However, the Q2 is smaller than SC1 over S minus A1. So X2 satisfies the Nash equilibrium condition, and in this region Q1 is greater than Q2, so producing Q2 is also an optimal choice for the sincerity. So if A1 and C1 increased, then the equilibrium point will move to the right side to the region D. So we could say that in the region B, both X1 and X2 satisfies the Nash equilibrium condition. However, only producing X2 is optimal choice for the sincerity. However, when we move to the region D, only X2 satisfies the Nash equilibrium condition. Let's say the third example, the last one, if the first two cases happened at the same time, it means that when the variable cost of producing C1 increased and beta 2 decreased, and again we still start from the equilibrium point on the 45-degree line. We know that the change in the increase in the C1 will lead to the equilibrium point shift to the right hand side, and the decrease in beta 2 will lead to the equilibrium point move to the region A and C. So there is a possibility that when the variable cost of producing C1 increased and at the same time the beta 2 decreased, there is a possibility that the equilibrium point can move to the region G. And let's take a look at the region G. So in the region J, the Q2 is smaller than this threshold level. So X2 satisfies the equilibrium condition, and the Q1 is greater than this threshold level. So producing so X1 is not satisfying the Nash equilibrium condition. However, in the J region, the Q1 is smaller than Q2. So actually, producing Q1 is the optimal choice for the society. So we could say that there is a paradox. When these two cases happen together, we will face a worse possibility. It means that the only X2, only producing X2 satisfies the Nash equilibrium condition. However, the optimal choice for the society is producing as X1. That is, the market can produce only a low-cost, high-demand elasticity group of commodities when a high-cost, low-demand elasticity group should have been produced. Now let's conclude. So the main insight for the DS 1977 paper is that they find the monopoly power in markets with non-convexities can enable firms to cover fixed costs, but its impact on market distortion is nuanced. And with constant elasticity utility functions, the market solution is constrained Pareto optimal regardless of elastic values. When society provides subsidies to cover firms' fixed cost, production output is maximized, prices are minimized, and the social welfare reaches its highest level. It means that the unconstrained social optimum is the best choice, is the first best choice. Finally, in the asymmetric case, the market tends to favor goods with higher marginal cost, lower fixed cost, and higher demand elasticity, which can lead to a misallocation of resources and a loss in social welfare, as we have seen in the three examples. Then finally, what's the policy implications we could get from their paper? The first is that the subsidies and regulations may be needed to counteract biases against the socially desirable goods. And framework highlights the importance of understanding intra and intersectoral elasticities can be very important. Great, then we are done. Thank you for watching this video, and this is a main reference.